Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're uncovering a kind of hidden disease that's quietly affecting our society, the loss of our original, uninhibited nature. We're exploring a seriously fascinating concept from our source material called the stolen youth of the mind. It's basically a deep dive into how our unchecked thought patterns quietly rob us of a fundamental part of who we are. But more importantly, we're going to look at how we can scientifically and spiritually reclaim that lost vitality.
So, I want you to think back for a second. Where did your 12-year-old mind go? Seriously, try to remember that colorful, playful, and just incredibly rich world you lived in at that age. You were probably free, uninhibited, totally spontaneous. But over time, this conditioned internal dialogue, what the source material calls the old voice, begins to take root. And this voice slowly, almost imperceptibly, steals all that youthful joy. It replaces it with rigid, anxious, or even destructive thought patterns that just keep us mentally chained down.
Now you might be thinking, well, I feel completely trapped by these patterns. But consider this quote. If you think the chain holds you, the first step is to see the chain for what it is, a thought. I know, it sounds incredibly simple, but the implications are actually revolutionary. You see, we often believe our thoughts are an accurate reflection of reality, but in truth, they're mostly just conditioned reactions to that reality. Our mental chains aren't these unbreakable physical things. They're simply thoughts that we've unconsciously fed over time.
Let's move into Section 1, the agitation, and look at the stories of David and Eva to see how this actually plays out in real life.
Take David, for example. Outwardly, the guy's a highly successful architect. He's making 3 times the average income, has a beautiful home, beautiful family, but inwardly, he is totally trapped. He started feeding that old voice with small, seemingly innocent allowances for vulgar thoughts, just to, blow off steam. But those thoughts took on a life of their own. They became extreme. He started filtering his entire perspective through this deeply aggressive and sexualized lens, literally reducing his wife to an object and viewing everyone else as either a threat or a weakling. His mind got so used to quick, uninhibited satisfaction that he completely lost his capacity for empathy. And the result? Explosive anger, a failing marriage, and deep, profound isolation.
Now contrast David's experience with Eva. Outwardly, Eva was always the cheerful one, a real creative force, and the life of the party. But inwardly, a totally different reality took hold. Paralyzed by all those perfect pictures on social media, she began doom-scrolling for hours. And let's be honest, that's a feeling a lot of us know all too well. The old voice kept telling her she needed external validation to be worthy. So her youthful spontaneity was stolen, not by some outside enemy, but by the invisible chains of her own conditioned need for approval. She became incredibly anxious, stopped doing spontaneous things entirely, and felt deeply lonely even though she had hundreds of online friends.
Which brings us to this wild paradox of what the source calls desocialization. As a society, we loudly claim that physical health is our absolute top priority, right? Yet we completely ignore this creeping mental isolation. Whether it's David's vulgar thoughts or Eva's social media obsession, these unhealthily conditioned minds lead to a massive lack of genuine connection. We look around at empty streets and fractured relationships, and we fail to realize that this latent disease is literally destroying our ability to function and connect in the real world.
So, how do we fix this? Let's transition to Section 2, Forging New Pathways, and dive into the science of redirection.
The absolute game changer for reclaiming your mind is neuroplasticity. Think of your brain like plastic clay. It physically changes its structure and function based on the conscious choices you make. Yes, the conditioning of the old voice is powerful, but it is not unbreakable. Every single time you stop feeding an old impulse, like David's anger or Eva's urge to doom scroll, and make a conscious choice to shift your focus, you're physically forging new, healthy neural pathways. And as you starve the old habits, those unwanted neural pathways literally fall silent. It's amazing.
Because there is a literal biological battle happening inside your head right now. On one side, we have the amygdala. This drives those automatic fear responses and short-term survival reflexes. It's basically the home of the old voice. On the other side is the prefrontal cortex, right behind your forehead. This is the area responsible for conscious decision-making, impulse control, and empathy. By actively shifting your focus, you are quite literally developing a more powerful prefrontal cortex, and that helps you regulate those automatic, unhelpful impulses firing off from the amygdala.
Okay, so how do we practically do this day to day? Well, the source lays out a really practical stop-go process. Step 1, recognize the trigger. What actually makes you want to react? Step 2, conscious inhibition. Literally hit the mental pause button and take a deep breath before you do anything. Step 3, shift your focus to a healthy alternative. And finally, step 4, address the new voice. You consciously activate a constructive thought by asking yourself, does this thought serve my well-being and my relationships? This active redirection is what physically silences those old pathways and builds the resilient new ones.
And that perfectly tees up Section 3, Guarding Your Heart. Well, we'll look at the spiritual solution.
You see, while the science of neuroplasticity gives us the mechanics of how our brains change, the source material anchors this transformation in something even deeper. That unrest and deep pain of isolation we feel, exactly what David and Eva felt, is actually an invitation to change. The source calls this deep desire for true connection the living signature of God. It proves we aren't just left helplessly surrendered to thoughts that isolate us. That inner call for genuine connection? It's a divine signal that we're meant for a life of abundance, love, and true community. And that's what motivates us to actively break through that old voice.
And it's incredible how this science of neuroplasticity is perfectly mirrored in ancient wisdom. Look at Proverbs 4:23, which tells us, "Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it spring the issues of life." Your thoughts, your inner voice, they are the literal source of your actions. So protecting your mind by making conscious choices isn't just good psychology, it is the absolute key to finding true freedom. Because what you allow to take root in your mind directly determines the course of your entire life.
So, how do we actively feed those new neural pathways? Philippians 4:8 gives us a pretty direct command. Focus on whatever things are true, noble, just, pure, and lovely. By consciously choosing to focus your attention on what is pure and life-giving, you are literally giving the new voice the upper hand in your brain's architecture.
When you merge this conscious, scientific redirection with these deep, spiritual truths, you literally begin reclaiming your stolen youth. The path back to that playful, multicolored, and vibrant world you had as a 12-year-old, it's not cut off forever. Every single victory, no matter how tiny, every time you pause instead of scrolling, every time you choose empathy over anger, you are feeding the new voice. It restores your original, uninhibited self and helps you discover your true calling in genuine connection with others.
Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. The old voice desperately wants to keep you chained, but the science and the spiritual truths we've unpacked today prove you have the power to break them. You are absolutely no longer a plaything of your reflexes. You are the captain of your perception. So I want to leave you with this provocative question to chew on. Where will you choose to look tomorrow? Starting right now, today, what neural pathways are you going to choose to forge?